Hey guys, my name is Aubrey and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, this is my channel and here we discuss all things from entrepreneurship, investing, personal finance, things like Turo, Upwork, Airbnb, and so much more. So if these topics interest you and if you want to learn how you can become an entrepreneur or how you can grow a business, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps the YouTube algorithm, it helps my channel grow, and it allows me to create more content. And if you are already subscribed, then welcome back and I appreciate you. So as I'm recording this, it is leap day, but as you guys are seeing it, it is the first week of March. And this month, I want to try something different. Since I started taking YouTube seriously at the beginning of this year, I've been posting 2 times a week on Tuesday and Thursday. In March, I want to experiment with posting 3 times a week instead. I'm trying to kind of get into that sweet spot of posting enough to, of course, favor the YouTube algorithm, get my videos out there, increase my views and subscribers, but I also don't want to water down the content just for the sake of posting more often. So I want to really try to experiment with the month of March and post 3 days a week. I'm going to change it to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the month of March. And then at the end of the month, I'll evaluate it and kind of go from there. If you guys have any feedback on that for this month, then make sure to comment below and let me know your thoughts. And so let's dive into this video. So if you guys have been paying attention to news at all, then you know that the coronavirus is being discussed absolutely everywhere.
The spread of the coronavirus.
Coronavirus in the state of Oregon.
Coronavirus here in the U.S.
And it's causing a lot of fear worldwide. People are getting stranded and quarantining cruise ships.
The Diamond Princess was quarantined for nearly a month in Japan.
They're being locked up in hotels. We had our first community spread in the United States. And face masks like this are getting sold out everywhere and they're becoming incredibly hard to find. Now with this fear, we are seeing the effects of that through the stock market and through the economy. In fact, this past week, we had our biggest decrease in the stock market since the 2008 recession. We saw a 3,600 point decrease in the Dow just last week alone, which hasn't happened since 2008. So today, I want to talk about 5 things that you can do or you can keep in mind to protect yourself against things like the coronavirus. Now, I'm not talking about the coronavirus specifically, but I'm talking about natural disasters or economic shifts or current events that are affecting the economy and local businesses. The coronavirus is the most recent and a very good example of how something like a worldwide event can have a drastic effect on local and global economies. And so I'm going to give you my 5 tips on how you can protect yourself, how you can turn this negative into a positive, and how you can avoid losing your business or losing your money. So let's dig in. So my first point is to remember to keep in mind that the economy and the stock market is so heavily affected by investor emotion. So often, whenever a stock is going down or it's going up, it's not backed by hard facts. It's backed by the emotion of the investors, whether the investor is feeling optimistic about the future or if they're feeling fearful about the future. And that's something that's important to keep in mind, is that this week with the stock market specifically, we received so much bad news in regards to the coronavirus. We saw that there was the first community spread. We saw that places like Italy and Iran are starting to get shut down because of the virus. And because of this negative news, we saw very dramatic decreases in the market. But then, for example, on, I believe it was Friday, the CDC came out and they briefly stated that the coronavirus was under control. And within the next hour or so, we saw that there was actually an increase in the market. And then a couple of hours later, the CDC came out and they said something negative about the coronavirus, and then you saw all those gains go down again. So with that, you can see that the stock market and the economy in general and businesses in general, they're heavily affected by emotion rather than facts. And that's important for you to keep in mind, is that if you're seeing these huge fluctuations in the market, keep in mind that so often those are affected by emotion. So if you're seeing this huge decrease this week, chances are you could see a huge increase next week if there's some positive news. And if it's not going to be next month, it could be next quarter, it could be next year. It really is just waiting out the fear and keeping yourself calm in the meantime. My second point, and my most important point in my opinion, is to keep yourself liquid. And what I mean by that is that you don't want to spread yourself, your businesses, your investments too thin. So I'll use Turo for an example. I have over a dozen cars on the Turo platform, and all of those cars except for one are paid for. So I have no car payments. I don't have to worry about getting upside down in the vehicles. I don't have to worry about keeping up with my car payments because they're all paid for in cash, which means that if next week the CDC was to come out and say that everybody has to go into quarantine, everybody has to shut down their businesses, and I had to park all my vehicles, what would happen? Well, the answer in my case is nothing. I would park my cars, they wouldn't be making me money, but I wouldn't really be losing money because they would just be parked. I wouldn't have to worry about making car payments. I wouldn't have to worry about keeping up with those costs because the cars wouldn't be being used. They would just be parked. They would just be sitting there, and I would wait out the period. And then once we got the green light to start operating again, I would then just simply send my cars out on rentals. But that scenario would be totally different if all of my cars were financed. If I had over a dozen cars on the platform and all of them were financed and I had a $300 to $500 car payment attached to each individual car, and I was faced with that exact same scenario, I would be absolutely screwed. I would have $6,000 to $7,000 in car payment due every single month on these vehicles that are just sitting in my parking lot, not generating any cash. And that's why liquidity in business is so incredibly important, because it allows you flexibility when it comes to natural disasters, economic downturns, recessions, things like the coronavirus. And in the case for me, if the coronavirus ends up taking a turn for the worse, I'll be fine. I'll lose some revenue. I won't make as much money, of course, but I'm not going to be at the risk of foreclosing on my house. I'm not going to be at the risk of losing all my cars. I'll simply not make as much money that month. I'll wait out the period, and then I'll be good to go once things return to normal. But if your investments are not liquid, then you could very much be putting yourself in a really bad position come an economic downturn. My third point is to diversify. Now, going on the same point as I was talking about earlier with the Turo example, is if the CDC was to block all businesses from operating and they weren't allowing me to rent out my cars for the fear of spreading the coronavirus, then what would I do? Well, Turo isn't my only business. It's not my only revenue stream. And so, like I said earlier, if that was to happen, I would, of course, lose money. I wouldn't be making as much money month by month, but I have other revenue streams that I use to make money. So I would still be able to pay my mortgage. I would still be able to put food on my table, pay my bills. I just simply wouldn't have the extra money to put into investments or savings at the end of each month. And that's where the importance of diversifying comes in, because you want to have a wide range of investments and revenue streams to cover you in the case that something with one of your revenue streams ends up being interrupted. And this applies to so much more than just the coronavirus. If the economy was to take a downturn, for example, restaurants are heavily affected by that. So if you own a restaurant and your restaurant is the only revenue stream that you have, and we have some sort of recession, then you're going to be in a really bad spot, and you're probably not going to be able to pay your bills. But if you have a restaurant and you also have a Turo business and you also have investments, then you could potentially use those other revenue streams to offset the cost of your restaurant, and then hopefully at the end of the day, you can cover all of your bills. So diversifying, whether it is just in day-to-day life, in a economic downturn, in an instance like the coronavirus, is so important because it again protects yourself and protects your investments so that you know regardless of what happens, you will have some way to pay your bills and to put food on the table. Number 4 is to use the downturn to your advantage. For example, with the corona specifically, last week we had a horrible week in the stock market, and that would have been a perfect time for people to buy stocks that they've been looking at a lower price. But the same could be said for a number of investments. For example, if the economy takes a downturn, chances are you could find vehicles online for cheaper. So that would be a perfect time for you to add cars to your Turo fleet. Or if there's a housing crisis, that's a perfect time for you to buy houses or commercial properties. There is always a silver lining when it comes to downturns, and you need to use that silver lining to your advantage to help yourself grow and flourish in the future. And so always remember that and use those downturns to your advantage to grow. And lastly is don't panic. And this is one of the most important pieces of advice that I can give. I've been reading a lot on forums, on Facebook pages, on YouTube videos of people who are freaked out about the fact that the stock market had a horrible week last week. They're really getting worried about what the coronavirus is going to do here in the States once it reaches the States to full capacity, as it has in China, if it ends up reaching the States. And my advice to that is to simply not panic, especially when it's things that are out of your control. The fact of the matter is we can't control what happens with the coronavirus. For the most part, we can't control if there's an economic downturn. We can't control if there's a war. All of these things are completely out of our control, and there's no use in panicking in things that you cannot control. Instead, my advice is to stay calm, hold on to your investments, and wait it out. If you are somebody who bought into the stock market at the beginning of the year, you probably are seeing a loss at this point now that it's the end of February. But the fact of the matter is, if you just hold on to these stocks and you stay calm, chances are in a few months or in a year, those stocks are going to go back up, especially if you're choosing stocks like index funds or mutual funds or really solid stocks like Tesla or Apple or Amazon. Those stocks are going to go up eventually. And you may have to wait out a period of time where they're going down and they're decreasing and they're losing money. But remember that you don't lose money until you sell. And so just wait out the period, don't panic, and wait until the stock goes back up, which more often than not is going to happen. The period we're going through right now is a perfect example of why I am such a proponent in choosing long-term investments as opposed to get rich quick schemes. Things like penny stocks or shorting stocks or these sketchy programs that you can find online, these sorts of things will not last in times of economic downturn, public crisis, natural disasters, but strong investments that you plan to keep for 10, 20, 30 years will. It's inevitable at some point you're going to see a downturn. You're going to see your stocks decrease. You're going to see your investments decrease. But as long as your plan is to buy and hold, then you'll be okay. So if you're going to take anything from this video, I want you to remember to stay calm. Whether it's an economic crisis, a natural disaster crisis, a public health crisis, it's so important for you to stay calm and for you to understand and keep in mind that bad times are going to happen. It's absolutely inevitable. And it's important for you to stay calm and realize that once the storm has passed, things will be fine and you'll be able to move on with your regular life. And if you're really smart and if you actually use this time to your advantage, you could actually end up benefiting from these crises. So guys, I appreciate you checking this video. If you like the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. It really helps my channel grow. Remember, this week I'm doing new videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if you want to check out those videos, then make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single video. And if you guys have any feedback on this new schedule and on the videos going forward, make sure to comment below. I will see you guys in the next video.